Hi, it's Jen from Shabby Fabrics, back with the Simply Sweet Table Topper series. This time it's for June. Those June strawberries are something I look forward to all year long. I grew up in Michigan where, nowadays there's fresh fruit available year round. We're so fortunate. But back in the day, as they say, we really only had strawberries for a limited amount of time, and then they were gone again for about 10 months. So the June berry very much resonates with me. We had a lot of fun picking some different reds, a little bit of pink when that berry isn't quite ripe yet. So that's what you're seeing here. If you're just seeing this for the first time, you're not aware of our really fun series, we kicked that off back in with the February project, and we're always delivering those to you the month before. So you can pick up your kit. Everything you see will be included, even the beads. There's a thread set add-on with each one of these, and the instruction, of course, is showing you a different embroidery stitch each month. So pick up those kits. They're limited amounts, of course. We order a certain amount of fabric, and once that's gone, we usually can't get more. So be sure to pick up their kits. They, of course, will include your pattern. So what's fun about this one is that I'm not only going to be teaching you the new stitch. Of course, we know we do that each month, the scroll stitch today, but I'm also going to teach you an alternative approach. We've been reading the feedback about this, and some people have been saying it's difficult to do the embroidery going through all these layers. Could we do a different approach? Yes. Thank you for the feedback. We love that. We read your comments. And so for all of you that have been pouring in with ideas, thank you. Thank you. We love a different approach to get things done. You can absolutely go back to video, the first one, even the second one, where I show you how to prepare the background. That is the exact same thing, right? Where we know that there's an opening, basically, like we turned this thing through, and there was an opening here, and that's our circle helps to kind of hide all of that. But the suggestion that we've had is, we don't want to have to do the embroidery where we're going through all of these layers and then we have the stitching on the back. So we're going to talk to you about an alternative approach that if that's you and you're like, how do we do it in a different sequence? That's what we'll be talking about today. So get your kits. I can't emphasize that enough. Everything that you need short of the either batting or fusible fleece that may be in the middle of that is in your kit, including the beads. It's really fun. The thing that is also an add-on, of course, a thread set each month. This time we have 3 50 weights. The 112 weight we've been consistently going back to, that we love having that denser stitching to stitch around the scallop. Do a little bit of echo quilting around the applique and again around the center. But this time we have 2 specialty threads. We have our variegated that we've done for our scroll stitch. And then we have this beautiful dazzle thread, which will be part of our blossoms, right? Our beautiful pink blossoms. I've seen that in my strawberry garden. And then we've got some beautiful beads. That's going to be, of course, the center of our blossom. That stuff's all that type of embellishment for the beads will be in your kit. So what is the deal about this different approach? You'll prepare your background just as I showed you before. That hasn't changed. What is an option for you, and we want to show you that option, is just like we've done before, we're going to take our 2 diagram pages and tape them together, cut around the perimeter, same like we've done before. What we previously did was bring our background to over top of our diagram. Of course, we're using a light box today. We had traced around all of our embroidery and at that time went ahead and, of course, added in all of our applique and ironed that down. This is where the change happens. If you're going to take this approach and you want to be able to do the hand embroidery through just this top portion and not have to go through all the layers of the background, the middle batting or fusible fleece and the backing, this is the approach you would take. At this stage, you would merely just trace on the embroidery and nothing else. Because of this approach, you could use a micron pen or a friction pen. A friction pen is possible. And the way that we learned initially, the micron pen was required. You'll see what I mean here. So I've traced on all of my hand embroidery, and the stitch that we'll be learning is the scroll stitch. Of course, that's included in our guide here. I've got the page number 154. Maybe you're a lefty or you're like, I just want to have that reference on my desk. I don't want to have to watch this video to watch you try to do it. Great reference, lots of other stitches, and you could do a completely different stitch if you don't even want to do the one I'm showing you today. So we're going to get up close. It might be a little bit noisy because I'm going to keep my fusible, the paper part on. It provides a little bit of stability. You do not want to use a hoop. Some of you that love to grab for that hoop when you're doing hand embroidery, I do not recommend that. So if you're comfortable removing the paper, you can absolutely do that. For a little bit more stability, you might want to do the embroidery with the paper on and then remove it after the fact. If it gets too noisy, I'll take it off. We'll start off with it on, and we'll be going through our scroll stitch, and we'll do a review of our Lazy Daisy. So for this stitch, and I want to show it to you, almost a profile so you can see it. It creates these almost little knots, and then it has a really neat texture. I wish you could feel it. Again, this is just the one we came up with. If you're like, I don't really like that stitch, this lovely reference guide, or maybe you've got a bunch of arsenal of stitches you already know, pick that one. This is just our idea. But if you're like, yes, let me try that. The scroll stitch, I've got my variegated thread loaded. I'm going to come up here at the beginning of my pathway, and this can be a little bit noisy. I'm leaving this on for stability. Hopefully it's not too noisy for you. I'm going to come down, of course, on the line, and I'm coming back toward where I came up. Now, you are going to lift this up and out of the way. This is very interesting, a really cool stitch. Good to challenge ourselves. We're going to go under our needle, all the way around the front of our needle. Give a little bit of a tug there. So we've created this loop, right? Try to lift that up just a little bit. Now, I'm going to try to control that here. It's going to create this loop, this knot that I now pull back toward me. Is that cool or what? I'm going to do it again. I want you to see this again. You're going to come down a distance and try to keep my hands out and keep it on the table. So we see this is where I came up. We're going to go down, come up in front of where I was. Remember how we were going to lift this up. This is going to scoot underneath all the way around counterclockwise 360 degrees. We bring it through. Creates that knot, and we rock it backwards. Isn't that a cool technique? And the variegation, of course, makes it seem as though you used different types of thread, and in fact you didn't. You have just the one kind. You'll keep going all the way through, and of course then you're just at the end, you're just going to go ahead and anchor it to the background, just as you would expect. Let's talk about tying off. We kept this on here because of stability. We did not want to use a hoop. So we're like, how do we tie off now? You can, I'm going to give you two approaches. Of course, we know we're always going to make that little knot, and you're just going to control where that happens. It's very actually easy to do that. You're just going to kind of keep scooting that. If that bothers you and you want to be able to tie off into the stitching you just did, just move some of this paper out of the way. We're going to tear it away anyway. You can start to tear some of it away now if you'd like. And if you prefer, feel more secure, and you want to tie off into your own stitching, you can do that now, right? Like we've been doing. And tie off twice. If the paper bothers you and you feel you have enough stability to do the embroidery without the paper on, take it off. That's no problem. I'll show you what I'm talking about. If I remove that, it's definitely a little floppier, but you're not dealing with the paper. That's just an option. You can decide what you want to do. Lazy Daisy, this is a review. I have my beautiful Dazzle thread. I absolutely use my thread magic because that thread has a mind of its own. A reminder, I just drag it through. It really is a conditioner. It calms the thread down and is less likely to knot or give you problems. Lazy Daisy, remember how all we have to do is mark the center and those points of where we want the loop to be anchored. Come in the center. I'm going to hold that knot off to the side, just a touch, so I can go right back next to it. It is noisy with the paper. Up, over, and down on that side. You've seen us do that, of course. You've seen us do that. Then you go back to the middle, out to the sides, all the way around. You have a beautiful Lazy Daisy. I'm just going to tie that off real quick because I want to just show you about removing the paper and how you have to be. If you do keep the paper on, you're just being very careful about not unseating any of your stitches. I would not do any of the beading until the very, very end. Even after the machine embroidery is done, I would go ahead and then add some of that beading in. You could add the beading now. I will give you that option as well. But to remove the paper, you're, of course, just like any time, you're going to be very careful about just helping to support that paper. It comes off very easily. If there's any paper that gets stuck someplace you don't want, you could, of course, use your tweezers and get that out. But you can see that this is a really nice way to add stability, right? The other reason you might wait to remove the paper is because once the embroidery is done, now you move back over here by keeping the paper on to the very end, getting ready to, before you apply it to the background, by keeping that on. When you come back here with the paper on, and you're now grabbing your shapes, you're turning your light box back on, applying your shapes. The best part about leaving that paper on is I can move it to my pressing mat and iron everything down, and I don't have to worry about this now being glued to that. If you've already taken the paper off, it's not a big deal. Just put an applique fusing mat down, so when you do iron your shapes down, it's not being glued to your workspace or maybe your ironing board. Once that's done and all of your applique shapes are ironed down, that's when you would then move it, including your center. That's when you would now take off all your paper completely and now move it to the background, iron it down, and now you're going to do the applique. So this was a suggestion from a couple of you, and I think it's really smart. If you struggle with this, it is a little bit of an extra step to do it. However, if you don't want to have that unsightly stitching on the background, or you struggle to get through the bulk of that fabric and the batting, this would be a much simpler approach for you, and the results would look just the same, and on the back would be even cleaner. So keep leaving us comments if you have even more suggestions. We want to hear them. I am busy working on Simply Sweet Table Runner, of course, or table topper, I should say, for the next month. And I can't wait to bring you that content and, of course, the specialty stitching that I'll be showing you. If you haven't subscribed, be sure to do that. And I'll see you next month as we continue our series.